Well, hello and welcome everyone to yet another full movie review by Fairly Critical. I am your host, Jacob, and I am happy to see you all. I know that you guys could be doing so much with your time, and so sitting down and watching me ramble on about movies for a little while is such a blessing, and it really makes all the work that we do so worth it. So thank you guys for that. If you do like today's video and you want to see more, please be sure to like the video to help us in the algorithms, subscribe so you never miss another one of our videos, and share this with your friends that you think might like it as well, so that way we can really grow the channel and support our content moving forward. Today we're going to be taking a look at Bullet Train, directed by David Fitch. Out in theaters now. It released just a couple days ago, and I have to say I was really looking forward to this film, and it did not disappoint. I really enjoyed it. Right off the bat, I mean, like I said, I was looking forward to it. I sat down, and for the first half, if I'm being honest, it was just kind of an action film, not super unique, just kind of generic. It was good action, but it was just another action film, and I had just watched The Gray Man for 2 weeks ago, and you guys hopefully saw my review on that one. So I was a little underwhelmed at the start of the movie, but it's the second half of the movie that really ties it all together. All the seemingly random actions and fight scenes and little details that were scattered that kind of seemed just made it all feel a little chaotic. Were really tied together and really supported the greater theme of the movie. That gave it a certain depth that I really was looking for and really appreciated. We'll go into the grander theme of the movie in the spoiler section. This is, of course, the non-spoiler section. If you're new to our videos, new to our reviews, we always start the review with the non-spoiler section, and then we'll get to the spoiler section where we'll discuss things in a little bit more detail. But I did find myself at the end of the movie thinking this was a little bit more clever than I was expecting, and I did really appreciate it. It doesn't exactly take a genius to piece it all together. It's not like you have to be sitting there paying attention to everything all the time, or you're gonna miss something. But it does have those things that if you catch them and then you loop it and connect it to the grander theme of the video or of the film, makes you really understand it and appreciate it all the much more. So I was very happy with what we saw. Like I said, it is directed by David Leitch. If you're not familiar with David Leitch's work, he directed the first John Wick film, both Deadpool movies, Atomic Blonde, Hobbs and Shaw, the Fast and Furious kind of spin-off movie, and a few others, but those are his biggest names. He was also Brad Pitt's stunt double in Fight Club, and I think Mr. and Mrs. Smith too. I could be wrong about that one, but he's been in Hollywood for a long time as a stunt double, and then also did fight scene choreography in certain movies before finally taking the reins of his own film and directing. I think his first film was, in fact, as a director. He's produced stuff too, but I think his first film as a director was actually the first John Wick film. I could be wrong about that, but I know he did that film, and I think that's the earliest one. So that's probably where you would know him from. And it's actually that relationship with Brad Pitt that really molded this movie. This movie was originally, as I understand it, intended to be a more somber and serious film based on a book. And when he pitched it to Brad Pitt said, yes, I'd love to do this movie, but what if we made it a little bit more comedic and irreverent? And he actually pitched the idea and the thoughts that were coming to him as he was reading the script to David Fitch. David Fitch loved the idea, and suddenly the tone of the movie dramatically shifted to kind of action comedy. And that's the product we get today. I watched a lot of red carpet interviews before I went and saw this film, and everyone kind of agreed. Fitch created this collaborative atmosphere on set where all the actors felt like they were free to make very bombastic character choices, and at the end of the day, whoever had the best idea won out, and that's what they went with. And while some of that you could kind of mark up to just people giving good praise to their former boss or to some movie that they have a vested interest in making sure is successful. When I watched the film, I got that. Everyone seemed to have very good, or well, all the actors seem to be able to make these really fun character choices, which when you think about how it was originally a somber and serious film, and now they're making these really kind of off the cuff, wild actions, it makes sense that they would have had some input in that. So I believe that I believe what they're telling me when they say that. It's also worth noting that this was filmed kind of coming out of the pandemic, and so everyone had a lot of internal stuff going on, and it kind of seems like they were working it out on set. Everyone kind of went from isolation to being on set, where they kind of built this familial unit according to their own interviews. Again, take that with a grain of salt. But the characters all have really good chemistry. The actors all have really good chemistry with each other. The character dynamics are fun, and so I think people were coming out of the pandemic, got some human interaction on a movie set, created bonds, and those bonds really contributed to the creative output of this movie. There is a lot to love about it. Obviously, Leach himself comes from an action background, being former stuntman and stunt coordinator to now being a director. So you kind of, and it's, I mean, this is some maybe legitimate remarks about this, but with movies like Hobbs and Shaw under his belt, which I never saw, but it's part of the Fast and Furious movies, so there's 98% action that doesn't give a crap. So he's got a good feel for action, obviously, but he does also have a good feel for drama and directing cinematography tricks and visual storytelling. I was very not necessarily surprised, but I was very pleased with his ability to know exactly when to employ emotion and employ camera tricks and really convey what the movie was going for. There's a part without, I mean, I don't think this is much of a spoiler, but there's a part in the movie where Brad Pitt's character's being told some sincere moment that kind of sheds light on all the stuff that happened in the first hour and a half of the movie. And right as he's being told this, the sun, which is in front of him, kind of peers over the horizon and it sheds light on his face. And it's a nice little visual representation of him being enlightened to what's kind of going on. So I really appreciated the actors were able to, it was like a bunch of these irreverent mercenaries that are not entirely sociopathic, but they're detached, and but in moments when they needed to, they were able to convey real emotion, and I was very pleased. We'll go into the acting a little bit here. This is a huge cast. I'm not going to go over each individual actor's what they did well and what they didn't. I'll probably single out 3 or 4 of them to kind of talk a little bit more about, but it is a huge cast, obviously led by Brad Pitt. He is the main focal point. He is the guy we're rooting for. The cast, like I said, it's huge. The 3 main supporting actors are Joey King, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Brian Tyree Henry. At least in terms of screen time, I mean, everyone, all the other supporting cast has really big parts to play. But in terms of screen time, those are the 3 that add the most to support. You'll probably remember Joey King if you watched Hulu's The Act or Netflix's The Kissing Booth. She's been in stuff as a child actor as well. Those are the 2 things that I never saw The Kissing Booth. I heard good things about it. I did see The Act, and she is phenomenal in The Act. I highly recommend watching that if you want to see something, because it is awesome. Aaron Taylor Johnson has been in a lot of stuff. I really like Aaron Taylor Johnson. He's one of those names that if I see his name in a film, I'm liable to go watch it. But you will probably most remember him from the first Godzilla movie, the remake with Bryan Cranston. I think it was 2012, 2013, something like that. But he's in that movie. He's in Kick-Ass. That's probably where most people will remember him from. That was his big break. He was Kick-Ass in Kick-Ass. The character, not as in he kicked a lot of butt. No, the character Kick-Ass in the movie Kick-Ass. He played that character. He was also Quicksilver in Avengers: Age of Ultron from 2015. So yeah, he's been in a lot. He has been in a lot, and I love seeing him and stuff. He did a great job in this film. Brian Tyree Henry is Brian. Yeah, Brian. Brian Tyree Henry is from the Eternals, and also Godzilla versus Kong. So both of those guys doing Kong movies, they have the best dynamic. Like they're paired together pretty much the whole movie. They're great together. But they spend a lot of screen time. Outside of those three, the cast includes, and I'm just going to read them off: Andrew Koji, who's done a lot of voice work; Hiroyuki Sanada, whom I love. He's been in movies. He's a Japanese actor who's been in a lot of American films, like The Last Samurai and stuff like that. Michael Shannon, who is phenomenal in everything he's ever been in. I don't think there's anything he's not. Logan Lerman, who, if you guys if you never watched Fury, 2014's Fury, Logan Lerman is the who plays with Brad Pitt in that film. Both of them got nominated for a whole slew of awards for that movie. So it's kind of cool, the thought of them being in another movie together. Unfortunately, neither one of them is on screen with the other one, at least not conscious. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to go any more of that, but I was kind of hoping they'd get some screen time together, and they did, but one of them was always knocked out whenever the other was with them. So I was like, all right, that's unfortunate. But Zazie Beetz, Bad Bunny, who would have thought? He did a great job. I don't know. And also Sandra Bullock, which was cool, because Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum had a movie called The Lost City, which came out on, I think, Paramount a couple months ago. That Brad Pitt actually co-starred in. It wasn't a huge role. Brad Pitt only really had about 10 minutes of screen time, but it was cool that they got to do it. Channing Tatum is on screen in this movie just as a cameo role, along with Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds' cameo is completely shocking and surprising to me. I did not expect to see him in it, but it was cool that he stepped in there, even for like 5 seconds. And then to cap off the list here, Masaoka and Karen Fukuhara have very small roles, but even those two light up the screen whenever they're on it. This cast was phenomenal. Everyone had great dynamic with each, the character dynamics were all very fun and engaging, and some of them had more emotion to them. Others of them were just, yeah, you want to beat each other up? Great, let's do it. And it worked. That's what they needed to have. The chemistry with all the actors was great. It was just a great acting movie. I'm not going to go into any more detail of that because I will be here for a long time. We're already 13-ish minutes into the video, so I don't want to talk about it too much more. I do want to single out a couple of really good pieces. Obviously, Brad Pitt's really good. Joey King gets to show off some serious acting chops. And I mean, if you've seen The Act, then you know she can do it. But it was cool to get her to see it, to do it on the big screen with the likes of Brad Pitt and Tyree Henry and Taylor Johnson. So it was really cool. Pitt gets to interact with pretty much everybody, but I really want to single out Hiroyuki Sanada's character, who gets some of the best dialogue in the whole film. Also a cool one-liner monologue before he cuts a bunch of people's heads off. And I love him, so it was cool to get to see him in this film and be kind of the wise one that sheds light on everything. Whether, I don't know, so like with, like I said, the atmosphere was really collaborative on set, so I don't know if his lines were scripted, Sanada's lines were scripted, or if he improv them, but his delivery is phenomenal regardless. So I just wanted to call that out. It was a great movie. There's really nothing I can point at in this movie and say I would have done that differently. Like I said, it did kind of drag on in the first hour. Not to say that it was bad hour, it was just there was a lot of chaos and a lot of just action with no a lot of emotion or depth or anything. And it's not until the second half of the movie that ties all that in together. So you kind of have to get through the first hour in order to appreciate what the second hour is giving you. So there's nothing I would have pointed at and said, you should have done that differently. Well, there is one thing, but we're going to go over it in the spoiler section. It's a really minor thing. This movie is just fun. I do look forward to watching it again. if for no other reason that it's just a fun movie that I'd like to see again. But more to the point, now that I understand the themes, I can go back and look at it, because there is a lot that happens on screen visually throughout the whole film, and I am certain that I missed things. And this is one of those movies where kind of like a lot of the small things that happen that look random and unimportant actually do have some significance later on in the story. So I'd like to go back and watch and see if I can pick up on any of those things. For now, this movie gets an 8.0 out of 10 from me. I might watch it again and give that a little bit higher or a little bit lower, but I'm going to call this an 8.0, making it the second highest film for me that I've seen this year, coming in only after Spider-Man No Way Home, and just ahead of The Batman. So I do highly recommend that you guys give this a view. Either go see it in theaters or wait until it comes out on a streaming service. It is worth the theater money to go in there and watch it on the big theatrical screen with the loud music, or with the loud special effects and the loud music and whatnot. So I do highly recommend this. I am going to call this here. This is the non-spoiler section ending here. If you want to watch the movie before you continue watching the video, end it here. Go watch the movie, come back and finish the review. If you don't care about spoilers or you've already seen the movie, then we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about the grander theme of the movie and some of the symbolism that all the characters kind of represent with respect to that theme. So stay tuned. But otherwise, again, thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you all next time. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share with your friends, turn on your notifications. We'll be back next week with a smaller video, but I'm going to leave it here for you guys, and we'll go into the spoiler section now. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys next time. Okay, everyone, we are back. Thank you guys for sticking around, or if you're returning, having stopped the movie before the non-spoiler section, or before the spoiler section, go watch the movie and you're coming back. Welcome back. This movie's grander theme revolves heavily around the concepts of luck and fate, both of them essentially being the same thing, just from different perspectives. The larger takeaway from the film is that those who essentially attempt to manipulate their fate and take their own fate into their own hands will inevitably fate will deal them a bad hand and they'll have a negative outcome, where those who are able to respect the influence of fate and kind of go along with it will come around with a more positive outcome. Ultimately, it's like you can make all the plans that you want, but fate is going to have the final say. These are, and I'm not going to go scene by scene with this movie for two reasons. One, we'd be here all day, and two, I will miss stuff. Like I said in the non-spoiler section, this is one of those movies where all the seemingly random stuff more or less has some actual development or thing to contribute to the plot. So if I were to go scene by scene, I am positive I would miss something. I just don't want to do that. Instead, we're going to talk about a little bit of the symbolism of the film, specifically with 4 characters, because if we did it with all of them, we would be here all day, and I'm sure that I would miss something. But let's start with the White Death, which is Michael Shannon's character. The White Death loses his wife, and in unable to deal with that loss, unable to just accept that fate has deprived him from that, he decides he's going to get revenge on all the people that he believes contributed to that loss in some way, and he really sets up the whole bullet train incident. It's when things out of his control come into play, such as Ladybug replacing Carver or the Prince's own schemes that he couldn't have accounted for, having an effect on his scheme, that things really go wrong for him. And that's kind of the recurring thing here, is that, you know, the people who are schemers, something happens in those schemes that they couldn't account for that leads to their demise, or their negative outcome. In this case, with the White Death, his actual death. The Prince, which is Joey King's character, is shown to be just as manipulative as him. And it turns out that is his daughter, so that kind of makes sense. But essentially, the Prince, since it's kind of expressly said that she is the one most like him. We can kind of look at what she does as kind of a substitute for his own character. When he walks past her, though, when she shows up at the end and monologues that, you know, I should have been the one that deserved your time and attention, and he just walks past her and he goes, "You were never part of my plans." Not only is that just awful to tell your daughter, but that's actually really important in terms of his character. It just shows us that he has no time or patience for anything that he didn't particularly plan for or scheme. Essentially, is telling us that he has no consideration for fate whatsoever. Fate is something that he commands for himself. He commands his own fate. There's nothing else that, if it's not part of his plan for his own destiny, it is not important. So that's pretty important to the main theme of this movie, and and one of the biggest reasons for his own downfall and death. It's the prince's scheme itself that actually ultimately leads to his death. Because so her resentment towards him, which is presumably, if he's ignoring her now when she just tried to kill him, he's presumably ignored her entire life, and that resentment leads to her scheming to kill him, which brings, even though her scheme is not perfect, it brings the elements into the story that do kill him, namely the father and the elder, who take advantage of the opportunity and remove him from the field. It's actually the trapped gun that she creates that ultimately is the thing that kills him too. So she does, in a roundabout way, end up being the one who kills him. And it's good. There's a lot to love about this film. The Prince herself is a reference to Machiavelli's political philosophy. If you haven't read The Prince by Machiavelli, it is really interesting, and there is a lot to it, but the two main, not the two main takeaways, there's a lot of takeaways from it, but two big takeaways from that writing are as such. One, you can and should use the goodwill of others to benefit yourself. You shouldn't just seek out the goodwill of others for the sake of goodwill, but rather as it can be used for your own benefit. And also, with good foresight and good planning, you can mitigate the risk that fate, or rather fortune in the philosophy, but in this movie, fate, can deal for you. So essentially, with good foresight and good planning, you can shield yourself from fate's downfall. Both of those are exhibited by the Prince in this film. She's constantly manipulating the other characters of the movie, using their bias and the just kind of natural goodwill that young, beautiful women receive from the world. She's able to take that and manipulate it and use it for her own benefit at least 4 times in this film. Probably more, but it's at least 4 times that I can think of right now off the spot. She also is a schemer, and so, you know, both of those tactics, both of those takeaways from the Prince are seen in the Prince's character in this film. She also represents Machiavellianism, which Machiavellianism is not necessarily a thing derived from Machiavelli himself. It's a psychological concept that was named after him, after a loose interpretation of the Prince. But Machiavellianism is part of what psychology refers to as the dark triad. The other 2 components of the dark triad being narcissism, which she definitely has in this movie, as well as psychopathy, which she also has in this movie. So she has the dark triad, all of it. She has Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. And also, this is reading too much into it, but I just wanted to point it out. The triad is, of course, the Japanese mafia, which the White Death, her father, is the head of. So it's kind of cool. It's just a nice little tie in there. I don't think it's necessarily important. I don't think it was what they were going for, but you know, it works. Out of the dark triad, Machiavellianism is the portion of the triad that represents manipulativeness, callousness, and indifference towards morality, all things that she exhibits in the movie. The 3 main components of Machiavellianism are antagonism, planfulness, and agency. Every bit of this she either portrays, represents, or conveys in this movie. So yeah, that's the most blatant, obvious, hey, this character is a reference to the prince in psychology's concept of Machiavellianism. Enjoy. And then that's literally what it is. Another thing outside of all that is that her character is expressly stated to have good luck, which contrasts with Ladybug's bad luck. The good luck is shown throughout the movie, but also at the very end when she actually survives the train crashing, and she shows up and she's like, I survived, I'm here, I'm now the White Death, and then gets run over by a truck. A truck that is a tangerine delivery truck. In a strange twist of fate, Lemon drives a tangerine truck into the prince. All of this can be seen as both her not being able to account for the strange twists of fate, but also her own schemes and her own attempts to manipulate her own fate coming back to bite her. Her manipulations of the ladybug lead to the death of Tangerine. She attempts to kill Lemon and fails, but Lemon, who has ire for her, and rightfully so, she led to the death of his brother and did try and shoot him. Randomly, or rather, fate gives him a truck that he then tracks her down with and runs her over. So it works on a lot of levels. Her death, her good luck, and her death run on a lot of levels. And there's just a lot to like about this character with respect to her outcome on the film, as well as what she represents. So that's one that when I watch it again, I just want to see everything and how it plays out now that I'm seeing what she represents and how she fits into the grand theme of the movie. Also, I love this. I love that Lemon is the one who takes the prince down for two reasons. One, he's earned it. I mean, she killed his brother and shot him. But also, her grand scheming, her manipulativeness, all of this is undone by the simple lessons that Thomas the Tank Engine teaches to Lemon. The simplicity that he looks at everything, his ability to read people, which he learned from a children's show, is ultimately what leads him not to trust her and to attempt to kill her later on. So it works on a lot of levels that Lemon is the one to kill her. His simplicity in removing her grand schemes works, and then just the poetic justice and him being the one who kills her. Ladybug, who is of course our main point of view, Brad Pitt's character, is a ladybug. And if you're not familiar with this, ladybugs are supposed to represent good luck. They represent good luck in pretty much every culture that holds them as a symbol. This is of course expanded upon, I guess we could say, by the elder in the third act, who says that it's not that they are good luck, it's rather that they hold all the bad luck so that those around them can benefit from good fortune. And when if you recontextualize all the stuff that happened to Brad Pitt in this film with that idea in mind, it turns the whole movie on its head. So he's complained about his bad luck the entire movie, but it's actually the bad luck of others so that they can experience good fortune. And it's a really cool thing. It really flipped it on its head for me. I don't think that's not Japanese symbolism. I believe that's Celtic or Celtic or Irish symbolism, where they say that the dots on the ladybug are represent the seven sorrows of Mary. And so I don't know if that is real in life. I don't know if any one culture actually believes that ladybugs soak up bad luck, but it works for this film, and that's ultimately all that's really important. So it was really cool. All the scheming of the prince and the White Death, which he had no control over, he refers to as bad luck. It's bad luck that he was on the train. It's bad luck that all this crap started happening. And for him, that's fate, right? It's the schemes of the White Death and the prince are his fate because he had no control over it, but it's schemes of others that he's just having to go along with. And ultimately, it leads to the father and the son the father and the elder getting the opportunity to go along with fate's designs and get the revenge on the White Death. by the end of the movie, he has learned that the seemingly random twists of fate are just stuff that he doesn't understand. So when at the end of the film, when the light pole crashes on the vehicle, it's not so much that he has bad luck, rather that it is fate may have just saved him from a car accident that might have shot him, or something like that further on down the line. He just doesn't understand that yet. So he has a much more positive outlook after this film than he did before. It's also a callback. It's a nice little callback because at the beginning of the movie, they show us that a jumper, a guy who's trying to commit suicide, landed on his car, and he saw that as bad luck. But what was bad luck for him was probably good luck for the jumper, who was then taken to the hospital, got the medical treatment he needed, and presumably and hopefully got the mental health assistance that he needed. Hopefully got into counseling, and he was able to work through whatever demons he had that caused him to want to jump. We don't really get to see that, but that's how I choose it. That's my headcanon. He got everything he needed. He no longer wants to do that. So that's Ladybug's whole part in the film. And then we have the Elder, which is the last character I want to speak about. At least kind of the last human character I want to speak about. He represents wisdom and the wisdom of ages. But it's not just because of his age. It's his strategy of not attempting to control his fate. In many ways, he is the antithesis of both the White Death as well as the Prince. And he has tried for years to kill the White Death. He strategized, he plotted, he schemed. Nothing worked. And I think he just never attempted it. He realized that it wasn't going to work, so he just never pulled the trigger. At least that's kind of what it makes me think. I could be missing something, and when I watch it again, I'll see if I missed anything. But it seems to suggest that he schemed, but he never pulled the trigger. He never attempted to manipulate fate because he realized it just wasn't going to work. Instead, all these things that happen on the bullet train, which he could have never controlled, his grandson being pushed off a roof by the prince, his son attempting to then go and kill the prince, his son surviving the gunshot wound, all the scheme that the White Death had that happened on the train, and ultimately him getting on the train, going to a place that he didn't know for a fact would lead him to the White Death, but end up doing so. All this stuff he had zero control over, and yet it just happened. It was fate that led him to that moment to be able to get his revenge, not his own scheme and his own manipulation. And that's what he represents, is just those who have ideas and have goals that they want to achieve, but are more strategic in how they go about doing it with regard to just letting kind of fate take the reins and lead them where they need to go. Okay, now I said I don't want to talk about the rest of the characters. I'm going to talk about the water bottle, which is essentially fate itself in this movie. Because here's the thing: the water bottle has no agency of its own. It cannot manipulate its own fate. It's an inanimate object. It can't strategize. It can't think. It can't move. It is completely reliant on the actions of others to get it where it needs to go. So in the final fight scene against the White Death, the father takes the water bottle, throws it at the White Death, and saves the Elder from being killed, in giving the Elder the opportunity to get the finishing blow on it. And the water bottle is then, before it's thrown, there's a whole flashback sequence that shows how the water bottle got from a random vending machine, earlier in the day, to that point where the father could pick it up and throw it. And that is, and here's my one critique of the whole film. When in the non-spoiler section, when I said there is one thing that I would have done differently, this is it. That whole flashback sequence shouldn't have been put together and shown at the end. What I think would have been better would have been for them to start the film with the vending machine action and Tangerine getting the water bottle, or not Tangerine, Lemon getting the water bottle, and then as the movie plays, we get to see the water bottle in the sections of the movie, and in as it progresses through its journey and through the story. and then it just shows up at the end. And the reason I think I would have liked that better, I think it would have been a little bit more clever. I think it would have been a little bit more rewarding for those who are watching the film and paying attention to be like, oh, that's the water bottle we've been seeing the whole time. That's awesome. No way that would have come into play. As opposed to where the sequence comes in and it's like, hey, here's something cool and clever that we thought of. Enjoy. And it's just it's a little heavy-handed. It's a little like, yeah, you only thought you fully understood the concept of fate, but here's fate's avatar, essentially. It's a little heavy-handed. It's a little in your face. I think it would have been more beneficial and more rewarding if it was a little more subtle in how it went to things, and only those who paid attention to it would have been able to find it. But that's my own thoughts. And at the end of the day, if that's the only thing I can really critique about this film, then so be it. Who gives a crap? It's just my opinion, and other people might disagree. So that's fine. If you're wondering, it's like, why, if that's the only critique you have, why are you only at an 8.0 instead of like a 9.0 or something like that? It's because at the end of the day, this movie's a fun movie and it's a cool theme, and I really appreciate it. It's a little bit more complex than I originally anticipated, but it's not some award-winning thing or some way that makes me completely change my my outlook on life. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a good action film, but it's just an action film, and we shouldn't. It's not going to change culture or anything like that. So let's sit down a little bit. Let's save those 10.0 ratings. Which, by the way, if I ever give a movie a 10.0, I'm going to stop watching movies, because I will. That's just a perfect movie, and you should just watch that for always and never. You should never watch anything else. So I don't think I'll ever give a 10.0. So this movie comes in at 8.0. It's very fun. I enjoyed it immensely. The added, kind of complexity to it and the added theme to it really made me enjoy it and appreciate it for what it was. I highly recommend you give it a shot. Go out in theaters and see it if you can. Watch it on a streaming service. Go watch this film if fate allows. God, that's stupid. I had to get it in there, though. Fate allows. Watch this movie. For Fairly Critical, I am Jacob. I have been Jacob. You have been awesome. Y'all have a wonderful week. Please like this movie. Please subscribe. Please share it with your friends. And I will see you next week in our next video. Thank you very much.